how far along do you think would there be humans in the loop? I mean, there will be obviously certain types of jobs that will get replaced, certain types of jobs that will get redundant, and certain types of a lot of jobs, I believe, I'm an optimist, that will get that will require expertise in decision intelligence, like you know. Uh, so my question is that what type of skills would be required by the upcoming enthusiasts, all the people who are watching this panel discussion. What sort of skills would they be requiring to at least get a job which won't be made redundant by upcoming AI and stuff like that? Your thoughts?
So that's a best part. I love this topic, and this is being led from how we started. I've been working on writing a book, and I've been writing a lot about this. The kind of fear which we have, like from the industry 4.0, and how the robots and AI will take over all jobs, and we have seen that, right? From all the movies to like everything, where the whole automation part is coming up. I think whole human especially has this fear. And recently, with a lot of talks, and because I'm in the healthcare sector and we do work with radiologists and all, they do have a fear that AI will be able to replace the doctors, radiologists, which you can understand is the most crucial and most technical thing, right? Because they are more the highly skilled people, and the fear is at all the levels. If you talk about a layman person who's working, maybe admin role, or maybe a driver out there, or maybe a worker out working, to the person who is highly skilled out there, the fear is kind of constant, maybe at different level, but the fear is there that how the AI will play part in maybe their domain and their kind of workplace it's there. Okay, and I do have kind of mix of feelings. So first thing is, what are the work and skills sets which we can see, and we're already seeing it, right? Because I don't know whether we should say that thanks to COVID and this whole last year, you would have seen that there are a lot of work jobs, and we have never thought that okay, we will able to work, like especially the work we are doing IT, the tech startups, like the way the teachers has worked, the way the workforce, the healthcare workers has been working, all the people, like maybe the administration part, like the legal processings have happening online. So there are a lot of things we have never thought will have happened. One instance, like when this kind of pandemic has changed the whole space. So there could be another one or two instances can happen in future which can change the whole, and the whole, you can say the whole technology, AI, and the digital transformation can happen again. The jobs which I'll say, which is surely gonna you can say automate, is the mundane kind of work. You see, right? There is some repetitive work. There is a less you have the brain use. You can say in the creativity part, or where the more of a decision making is not very strict too much, right? Those kinds of jobs are we are already seeing they are in the way of getting automated, right? Those are the first way of jobs which will surely go. Another part which the jobs which I think the skills which people should look at is more of a like logical thinking, creativity part, and where you can solve the problems. And like you should look not only looking at the just like solving or doing the work, maybe solving the problems, and using all the skills out there, maybe using any technology tools out there. Right? If you see like the content creation part has become a totally new kind of in the digital marketing space, and where there is no you can say there is no kind of rule. Anyone can become, you can say, a celebrity now, right? With the help of social media. So these are the totally different skill, or you can say different job profiles which we are seeing recently has emerged, which we have never thought, right? If I just give an example like drone pilots and drone like the engineers out there, right? These are the very highly skilled and the jobs, especially in UAE and all those regions. People don't even know that these kinds of things are accessing. So where you are working on some of the cutting edge technologies, maybe the work skills which require more of as a human decision making in nature, instead of just following a process out there which somebody has done. Like if you see the whole manufacturing plant, like Alibaba and Amazon warehouses, there is not even a single one or two person out there. Everything is being like managed by robots out there. So these are the spaces where you see where you have a kind of very repetitive process will surely go on automate. But the thing is, if you have a domain knowledge, you can work with this AI. Now, if you look at the drivers, there's one video I was watching where the She was working as a driver for more than like maybe the half of her life she has worked. And now recently when this especially in outside India, they have been planned this very heavy vehicles out there which follow very straight path. There is not much they have to do. They have to maybe go from one place to another and just unload that vehicle. So there they have implemented almost an AI self-driving car of systems where just a human driver is there just to provide a feedback. Now even for training those self-driving cars, you require the drivers out there to at least test and do that. So you can become an SME of that, and maybe you can work with AI to understand how to tell that because sometimes AI taken a wrong decision, or sometimes as a human we would have taken a wrong decision, and that could happen. But obviously, the percentage of those people would be very less. Like SMEs, they can become an SME of that particular field, and then can understand how AI and technology they can become a part of a technology and can create their profile. But the 90% chunk of people will have to migrate to some new work, as we have seen, because there is no other way. Because you have to upskill yourself into some new things to fill that gap. And in US, I think we have already seen there's a kind of lot of areas where which people who do not have that kind of job profile, not they are kind of you can say jobless, which was not a kind of scenario before. And I think the history have shown this. Like whenever there is a kind of industrial revolution has happened, there is a lot of people who have like they have whole rage has happened when especially the steam engine came, when the industrialization happened. There was always that kind of thing, and but in the end, you have to move on with that. So that will be the time period. There could be we'll see like robots and all. People had rage before also, but slowly the acceptance will come as there is no alternate. You have to move along with that.
So before the next speakers just ask, jump in, I just want to add one more question along with this, and that would sort of help. So all I'm saying is that who are the best candidates to enter this field of AI? I mean, what are the prerequisites, stuff like that. So maybe if you could shed some light on that as well, it would be like hugely beneficial for everyone, including me as well.
Okay, sure. I can go on next. I was adding to Ashish's point that whenever industrial revolutions come in and go, there are some jobs that get uprooted and there are new ones that get created. Right. I'd like to cite one example when banks underwent this change of digitalization, automation, and all of that. Right. So they never felt of the way that hey, we are gonna replace humans. It always was that we are gonna augment what we have. No organizations, organizations with good leadership are trying to have to employ AI in a way that they want to keep doing more, be more productive, be more efficient in a way that that humans are not required to do the mundane, monotonous, repetitive chores that they used to do, but rather make more decisions, be more on the decision, logical reasoning, creative front with which they can handle businesses, customers, things of more logical, rational thinking in that pragmatic sense of the way. So even jobs to be is a great book that I'm guessing a lot of you might have read or heard about. They also spoke about this very example around when checks started getting automated, all these digital recognition, check fraud recognition, all of that started happening. When they started having ATMs for dispensing cash, they never told their bank employees that hey, we're gonna lay over hundred thousands of employees, that you are not needed anymore. They always felt the need that some other thing would come in and take place, and that would help you serve your customers, serve your businesses, serve your partners in a little better way. And another example that I wanted to add is, for example, which is around the creative, innovative space. Despite we getting a variety of industrial grade clothes, apparels, garments already printed out there, there are still folks, designers as an industry still exists, right? People would want to go for hey, I'm wearing a Manish Malhotra this, or I'm wearing a Sabyasachi this or that, for example, right? So like this innovative, creative sense that appeals to a broader audience, if you can make a brand out of it, if you can create value to the users, to the experience that you're enabling the users with, that is something that is not going to go away. That is what I feel. And to add to the second question that you were also mentioning, Avin, there's a recent article from AICD that is right from India only, that engineering would not require physics and maths as a very basic necessity to enter into engineering, right? So I, I I knew folks from 2013, 14, 7, 8 years ago, who had done history majors, who were into arts, who were into political science. They progressing tremendously, doing exceptionally well into AI and machine learning. Right, couple of clients in the US, couple of clients in Israel, Palestine, all of them. They did not have a science background per se. I'm not saying that it is not necessary. They learned eventually that. So if you wanted to understand stochastic gradient descent, there would be a certain amount of calculus required to be able to understand the same. But we as a society are progressing in a way that there are no barriers to entry in what you want to learn and what knowledge can come in. We can always learn, unlearn things that we don't want, and be able to help progress any industry for that matter, be it AI or be it anyone else also for that matter. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on this.
Well, so in terms of hiring, for example, again, from my Gartner days and then Wipro days, typically, I mean, the challenge that I have seen, especially when we are hiring for AI data science related practices, is that most of the time people, relate their ability to code in Python as they know AI, which is I used to get like infuriated, by somebody claiming that, oh, I code in Python, I developed these modules. Like, who needs to code in Python? There are millions of libraries. There is Keras, there is PyTorch. For God's sake, you don't have to code anything. I don't think nothing much is left until unless you are actually coming up with a completely new kind of algorithm or a technique itself, like the deep minds of the world are coming up with almost on a daily basis. If you don't do that, you don't need to code anything. Everything else is already available in the libraries, one library or the other. You should just know how to search the libraries. So that is where, in fact, is the first thing that there is an overemphasis of being able to code in Python, and Python is probably the easiest to code language. I have been coding for 25 years. I started with C. So you can imagine, I started with embedded SQL and C, and from that, Python seems like I'm reading a Jeffrey Archer novel, yeah, honestly. So there is nothing to code, in fact, in Python in the first place. And then taking credit for it is even stupider. So that's the first thing I used to tell, that please don't come to me and say that just because you can code in Python, I will hire you. That's the first point. And second point is, I think the practical emphasis, what I have seen when delivering to clients, knowledge of domain, knowledge of one particular domain is at least terribly important. So if you are developing some kind of use case for an insurance company, you should definitely know how actuaries work, how they think, how they decide, what are the commonsensical, or formally speaking, the heuristic functions that they use in their own decision making domains, and try to map that into the models rather than just writing a code and expecting some accuracy by fluke, which is what typically the so-called data science trained engineers they try to do. Being an engineer myself, I love to be an engineer. I still consider myself very lucky to have done engineering, because to me engineering is not just the building systems. Engineering is a way of thinking, right? So if you are given a problem, you solve it in using certain techniques in a scientific manner. That is what engineering is. It's applied science. And that is where, in fact, not just science, but anything applied. My daughters, for example, my elder one is 18 now. She is going to probably University of California, San Diego, for just because they offer a very unique combination of, she wants to do computational linguistics. Now, computational linguistics as a course is not available at undergrad level anywhere. But UCSD has come up with a very interesting option for her. That is, you can do BS in cognitive sciences. That's a unique course that they have come up with, and you can do a BA in linguistics. So she wants to do a dual major, one in linguistics because that's her, she is very strong in language and that's what she likes to do. And she also likes computer science, which is something that she cannot pursue in, unfortunately, in our country so far. And that is where, in fact, she will do a double major, and she is very happy and excited. So that's the way forward. Probably each one of us who have been very happy to be engineers, so wearing just one hat, should develop maybe two or three horns on our heads, and so that it can hold multiple hats. And probably one of them should be language, one of them should be art, and one of them should be engineering, rather than just the engineering hat.
Yeah. I think just to
Um,
add, I think one more thing on the skill part, because I've been working in tech startups, especially with graduate learning, and there is a massive push, you can say, and the people I'm getting from MBA, CA, BCom, mechanical, civil, and you just name it. Any other people are wanting to get into data science. I'm saying there's nothing wrong with that, but the kind of conception they have regarding things like maybe from C, like C++, Java, people have spend a lot of time and they don't want to get into the competitive programming part, and they just fed up with that. And they, when they find Python, obviously the 2 week we see the learning curve of the Python, it's really cool, and they find out it's very easy to do in your data science. You just do NumPy,
Exactly.
pandas, Eskil, and Keras, you do, and you can build a model. And that's a something where the trap where people get into when you do all the skills and you think like, okay, I can do this. But the whole problem happens when the real machine learning projects happen. It's a totally another world, and that world they have never seen it before. And even the kaggle and all is I'll see the majority 50-60% part is done because you're getting a very clean, very at least a structured data itself. In the real machine learning project itself, when you get into corporate or something, it's a totally different world. You don't know even where the data is going to come from. So the challenges which is there in real time and what is being in the, you can say, the layer above is a very hard part. And industry also as a job way, as I have seen that, because when I've started, I've also followed a very similar path. Like there was a no kind of way. Everybody has learned from 10 different places and all, right? And job profiles are also not very clear. So what they just focus is more toward like either you can code in Python, you know SQL, or you have worked with some machine learning problem. And so there also I need there's some standardization or some things has to be done, because it's just going like the way, like you have a requirement, you have to fill it, and it's also very difficult. So we need to come up with some at least processes, and people should not. I think people just go into data science because they don't want it to get into competitive programming and data structure. I'll say that when you come into the real world, you really have to get into. I'm actually learning all the concepts back because you can't
yeah,
skip that code, and that's something which people feel that when you commit, you don't have to work go into that until you are in AI research or something. You're working on some creating some another kind of statistical model itself. That could be a totally different world. But I think hardly 1 or 2% job is there where you're just doing a building an algorithm or doing that statistical modeling kind of thing. 90% use cases actually you build their application, give it to the client where they can realize it and all. There's a whole layer of that where there's a whole skill mismatch, and what they are expecting by coming up, and when they actually get into the thing, it's a kind of a lot of, I think, say, yeah,
I think it's, what Einstein mentioned about theory of relativity, that actually AI is becoming like that as a field, right? Einstein mentioned that anybody with German grammar school 8th standard math knowledge should be able to understand, theory of relativity. And I think that is precisely what the situation is. The first question for any AI practitioner I used to ask is, explain to me the difference between correlation and regression. Just that. And I am sorry to tell you that 90% of them actually couldn't explain it properly. So they haven't done their basic maths and stats and, leave alone computer science. In fact, I got my girls to study microprocessor architecture, the book that all of us probably have read, the Bray book. Yeah. So it's like Gray's Anatomy for medical sciences. The computer science students have the Bray. So, I mean, and the basic understanding of microprocessors, if you are running something on Spark, if you're running something on Hadoop, and you don't even know that what is the difference between a GPU and a CPU and why GPUs actually work better for certain types of problems, how will you ever leverage any kind of big data infrastructure, right? It's like you just know how to drive a car, but you don't know how IC engines work. At least you should know how it works, right? So that if the engine seizes, you know what to do. So that much knowledge needs to be there. It doesn't mean that you have to actually be able to create an IC engine of your own, but at least you should know that, okay, there are cylinders and there are pistons, and this is how the energy gets generated, right? So that's something that I think fundamentally is required to enter this space. But at the same time, I feel that the space is open for all, so long as your basics, the 8th grade grammar school is on.
Yeah, I do agree with that because you basically all of you mentioned about something called domain knowledge. So if someone, so I'll be honest with you that in my very limited experience, when people do come and ask me, hey man, I want to get in data science, I ask them, hey man, what is your niche? You could be an excellent data scientist in tech, but a terrible data scientist in healthcare. The domain knowledge is important. If I know all about, let's say, tech and stuff like that, I have zero knowledge in retail, how it works. My data science skills I will not be able to leverage it then, because in the end, I have to help the executives to make decisions, and that's where your decision intelligence comes in, right? So I always ask them, what is your niche? I've seen help people from biotech coming to data science, civil engineering coming from data science. So I don't think a civil engineer would be, at least for me, he won't be the first person on top of my list to select him to be a data scientist in, let's say, in healthcare, because of obvious domain knowledge expertise. So yeah, I do agree with that thing.